Welcome back to the Varsity Voices Media Network and another edition of our Prognosticus episode. I'm Joe Frevaletti, and here with me, looking all tan and rested, is my co-host, Dan Frevaletti.
And
we're
chilly. It's chilly here.
Right?
Yes.
It's a
I
little
like the
chilly here.
desert. Yeah.
Yeah, we're rolling into week 7, Dan, of the Chicago Catholic League football season. The stakes get higher every Friday night. Playoff pictures are starting to take shape. Rivalries are heating up, and every snap feels like it could be the difference between momentum and heartbreak. So tonight we'll walk you through every matchup on the slate, from the heavyweights like Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, and Loyola, to the gritty underdogs looking to make a statement. We'll break down key players, the matchups that matter, and of course, we'll give you our predictions for how it all plays out under the Friday night lights. So get ready. It's time to go game by game and see who's got the edge heading into week 7. So, Dan, before we even get started here, I've got to play one thing for you, okay?
All right.
All right, here we go. Wait a minute. Here we go.
Happy birthday!
How about that? Happy
Today's
birthday,
the day.
Dan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. It's a. I love that it comes in the fall. I always tell people that it's the best. It's the best birthday weather. I have it. I love the fall weather, even though it does feel a little chilly after coming back from vacation in a nice warm spot. But yeah, I'm it's very fun. Very blessed, kids, family, everything else. So
Yeah.
it's a good birthday. Thanks.
So, did you do anything special?
Just traveled.
Just traveled home, right?
Traveled. Yes.
You're
Ate whatever I wanted, wherever I wanted it. You know, I took was that guy had a big sandwich on the plane.
Right.
Pepperoni. Yeah. So that I was like, hey, it's my birthday.
Hey, it's my birthday. I can have a pepperoni sandwich.
Yeah, they got upset when I put 56 candles on a cupcake though.
Right. All right. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your birthday. At
Thanks.
least, yeah. In whatever way you can enjoy it, right? When you're traveling.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So are you ready to talk some week 7 football?
Am I ever? Yeah, it's a good way to get back into things, get back into the swing of things for us. And man, coming off a great week with some unbelievable games. So looking forward to week 7.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com.
Yeah, me too. And, we've talked for the last 6 weeks, Dan, about teams that their backs are against the wall, or, they've got to win out, or whatever it might be. And now it's really, in some cases, it's too late, right, for some of these teams.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
which is really hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Our guy Susie has kind of gone back and forth with will there be 4 and 5s in? Will there not? I think there's going to be very, very few.
Well, the same conversation happened last year, remember?
Yes.
It's like there's going to be more 4 and 5s than there were the previous year, and everybody was talking about who's going to be a 4 and 5, who isn't. And then I don't know if any 4 and 5 teams made it last year when it came down to it.
Right. Were there any? May have been one. That's what I thought too. So
maybe one. And the year before, the reason it even came up was because of Naz, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got in at 4 and 5
Yep.
and won the state championship.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you on that. Even though people are going to be talking about how many 4-win teams are going to get in, I'm going to say 0.
Yes.
Or 1.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. That's probably, and coaches probably can use that as, hey, we still got a shot here, but yeah, you're definitely, you're kind of stuck to the wall.
So I've got you are, and I've got a new acronym, Dan.
What is it
for this week? It's HFWGI. Do you want to know what that means?
Let me see if I
Or
can figure out
all right, see if you can figure it out.
how got nothing.
Hope 4 wins gets in. What do you think? Do you like it?
HFWG.
HFWGI.
All right, HFWGI.
Yeah.
Yes.
I may mention that a couple of times during this episode,
All right,
just so you're aware.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
All right, good. All right, well let's get started then with Brother Rice and Notre Dame. And Brother Rice 5-1, right? So they're in already. Um, they lost last week to Mount Carmel in a really good game, 27-14, and really put up a pretty good fight against Mount Carmel, I think. Right? I
Yeah,
think
that's about it's as close as anyone outside of week one. Playing another
yes,
nationally ranked team, but
yeah, I
looking at
agree.
things, Brother Rice is probably is a top 50 team across the U.S. I would imagine.
You would think.
Yeah,
I would think. And I haven't looked at the rankings in the state of Illinois lately, but they've got to be what, top 10?
yeah, for sure,
Top
for
8?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So even though they lost last week to Mount Carmel, they're really talented. They can hold their own with anybody, I think. And I think they showed that with Mount Carmel. Notre Dame 2-4, right? They lost last week to Joliet Catholic 16-7. Notre Dame has 4 straight losses now in the Chicago Catholic League. So, excuse me, they're reeling a little bit, and they want to try and get back on track here. They're one of those teams with only 3 games left that their backs are against the wall for sure if they want to get into the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to be able to do that against Brother Rice. Even though I like what Coach DeFranza is doing there, and I feel like he's got them in the right direction or going in the right direction. I just don't think they have enough at this point to compete with Brother Rice. So I'm picking Brother Rice in this game over Notre Dame, Dan.
yeah. I think it's probably that's probably a fairly I don't know, easier pick at least to make. You don't want to play the games before Friday night, but Brother Rice seems to be loaded. Notre Dame, I wonder where they think they are. It'd be interesting to have a conversation with their coaching staff and see, hey, we're a little ahead of schedule, but we're not quite, we're not at this level yet. We didn't expect to be, but we're further along. We're not as far along. I feel like they're a little further along, even
Yeah,
though their record doesn't show it, but they just aren't ready for these types of games yet.
right.
And
Yeah,
so give Coach DeFranz another year or two and see what happens. But yeah, I think because of where these teams are at and it's at Brother Rice. So oh no, it's at Notre Dame. I'm sorry, at
it's
Notre
at
Dame.
Notre Dame,
Yeah.
right?
So I'm going to also pick Brother Rice.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know uh, if you do this too, Dan, but I for some reason I put in the same bucket St. Patrick or St. Pat's and Notre Dame, and I try and I kind of compare the two teams together because both new coaches, both rebuilding. I would say in a rebuilding phase. So I'm you know, I'm wondering how far along Notre Dame is versus St. Pat's and that kind of thing. And I feel like St. Pat's might be a little further along than Notre Dame is at this point. Maybe it's just been the schedule for Notre Dame, but St. Pat's seems to me that they've taken some really good steps this year, and they're 4-2, right?
Yeah,
So
I think there's teams that are
yeah,
figuring it out, Joe. As we've talked about, they like. I think that last step is belief, and I know it wasn't on the recap episode, but a big win, kind of an easy going away win against Bennett, in that within that division. I think that gives a team like that confidence,
right,
especially coming off the week before getting thrashed by Brother Rice. So,
right,
so I do
exactly.
too. I think St. Pat's a little further ahead. They seem to be a more well-rounded team.
Okay. All right, so another good game here, and actually they're all good games at this point of the year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But we've got Carmel versus DePaul Prep. So you've got Carmel. I think they're back at home now this week, and unbelievable game last week against Montini. They lose that 55-54, but they lose it in the last minute of the game, going for a 2-point conversion. Montini's defense steps up, but one of the things, and I watched all the highlight clips of this game, and it lasts about a half an hour watching the highlight
I'm
clips
sure.
because it was an unbelievable game. But one thing I saw is Carmel is so talented, right? Starting with their quarterback, Trey Taylor, wide receiver Kai Owens, and those are just two. They've got talent up and down on both sides of the ball. And if they're 4-2 coming into this game, DePaul Prep is 2-4. DePaul Prep is really in a tough spot right now. And I think DePaul Prep is going to play like that they know they've got to win out here in order to get in the playoffs. Last year's state champs, missing the playoffs the following year, that's got to be really tough for them. But I think Carmel just has way too much talent. And I don't think DePaul Prep is going to be able to contend with that, and especially being at Carmel as well. I'm gonna pick Carmel in this game, Dan. I think they're one of the top teams in the Chicago Catholic League, and I think they're going to show that. I think they want to show that last year was an anomaly, that they did not get into the playoffs, and I think if they were 5-2 right now, maybe might be a little bit of a letdown, but they're 4-2. They want to secure that playoff berth for sure, and I think they're going to come out that way. And I'm going to pick Carmel in this game.
Yeah, Joe, I think what you said there at the end, they want to secure it.
Mm-hmm.
They'd like to leave no doubt. And so I think you see a ton of points put up by Carmel this weekend. I think they're probably angry as heck, coming off that a tough loss like that. And it seems it's playing out that maybe the purple is down a little bit this year.
Yeah.
Except St. Pat's seems to be surprising a little bit, but the purple might be that cycle where the purple's a little down. So I think Carmel's got the better team, got the star power, established star power, and they are clicking on all cylinders offensively. Um, I don't know that DePaul Prep has the firepower to match with them, so I'll take Carmel.
Okay. All right. Yep. All right. So the next game I have here, Dan, is Bennett versus Fenwick, and Bennett's 3-3. They lost last week to St. Pat's, and Bennett needs 2 out of the last 3 games that they have on their schedule here in order to get to the playoffs, and that's no easy task considering they've got Fenwick, then they've got Nazareth, and then they've got DePaul Prep, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be really tough for them, and I think this game is going to be really tough for them too. I was trying to put together a scenario where Bennett could win this game against Fenwick, and the only one I could come up with was that um, they would come up with some big plays on offense, right? The grind it out is not going to work against Fenwick and their defense. We know how tough their defense is, right? And I don't think Bennett is kind of built that way either. And to be able to grind it out, 80 yards and going for a touchdown. I think they're trying to rely more on the big play. And I don't think they've necessarily gotten their big playmakers involved enough on the offense, like Doyle,
Yeah,
right?
Doyle and Diomede. Yeah.
Doyle and Diomede. I just, we haven't talked about them all that much this year in their games. So, I think that's going to be a problem for Bennett. And we know what Fenwick can do. They're 5-1. They beat St. Lawrence last week. Their only loss was a really close loss, right? So I think Fenwick on both sides, offense and defense, and their special teams, they've got a great kicker as well in Noah Sir. Um, I think they're just going to be too much for Bennett. I don't see Bennett competing in this game all that much, and I'm going to pick Fenwick. Yeah.
Yeah, both these teams coming off surprising scores. I think we picked
Yeah.
Bennett, or we picked St. Pat's, and we picked Fenwick last week. We certainly didn't think the scores would be as lopsided as they were. Fenwick's offensive output versus St. Lawrence was pretty eye catching, and the same with St. Pat's versus Bennett. I think Bennett hoped that they would be better defensively than they've been. So, but yeah, Fenwick is, we've said all year, so balanced, so efficient, and has the ability. They can get in a grinded out game as well as go big play for big play. So I think if
Right.
you're looking at Bennett, using the big play to try and score and win, I think Fenwick can match him point for point. So I think Fenwick's got too much this year, and so I'm going to pick Fenwick.
Okay. All right. So next game, IC versus Marmion. So Marmion is 3-3. They lost to Marion Catholic last week. I don't know. Was that a surprise to you at all, Dan,
Oh
or did
yeah,
you pick Marion?
I think I picked Marmion.
I think you did too. So did
Yeah,
I.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think it would be that type of game where Marion Catholic would kind of dominate, but I feel like Marion Catholic found something,
yeah,
right? And we'll
yeah,
talk about them later, right?
yeah.
But I don't think Marmion was ready for that running game that Marion brought out, right?
No, I think that's exact. They are also one of those teams that has just kind of figured it out.
Yeah, they have. And I see they have really nice win, big win against St. Francis last week, where I think they really frustrated St. Francis. And it wasn't just because their offense, which seems to be clicking with Nate Lang at quarterback, some of the wide receivers, their running game, they're starting to become a little bit more balanced as well. So I see is really a formidable team, considering their size and all those other things, right? Um, and I think from a standpoint of what Marmion has been trying to do, and I think Marmion's trying to really build this kind of balanced offense and maybe running the ball a little bit more than they're throwing the ball, right? But the defense from IC, from what I saw last week, and our dog of the week was Tamarian Garner, their
Yeah,
defensive end.
well deserved. Yeah,
Unreal, right? They are swarming and they put constant pressure on the quarterback. So I have a hard time seeing how Marmion is going to be able to combat that defense, as well as keep IC from the big plays that they seem to be pretty good at over the course of the first 6 weeks. I really like what they're doing on offense, and I like the different stars that they have, a quarterback and a wide receiver and running back.
yep.
So I think IC is going to win this game. I think they're going to win it fairly handily as well. So I'm going to pick IC in this game, Dan.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy pick at this point. There's a class of teams that fall into that really improving during the season group.
Right.
We've mentioned a couple of them, and whether it's Marian Catholic, or who else was that we were just talking about? But IC is one of
St.
them.
Pat's.
St. Pat's, yes,
St. Pat's. Yeah.
yes, and IC is one of them where you can almost see it gel in front of your eyes during a game. Like, oh, we figured this out, or coaches see it as well. It's like,
Yeah.
we've got something here, and it's kind of cool to see. If you're a fan of that team, it's one of the more exciting things to see. Whether it's offense or defense, it's like, hey, this is really coming together. And
Yeah.
we've said early on, this is an IC team that swarms, And when you have that, you swarm like they do, and you play a little play with a little edge
Yeah.
defensively. It really helps, and they do that, and then have the complementary offense. So I think they're clicking. I think they're going to be really dangerous. Have to be one of the favorites in whatever class that they go in the playoffs. So I'm picking IC.
Okay. All right, good. We are I don't think we've differed on any games yet so far,
No,
Dan.
no, we
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah. Okay. So what about Loyola and Providence? Do you think we're going to differ here, or tell me what you think about this game?
Boy, this is a tougher game to pick. I think the casual fan or high school football fan in general might just, yeah, obviously it's Loyola, but
Yeah.
I think Providence is pretty good. You know, I
Yeah.
think I think they're pretty good, and I don't know if they've fallen quite into that category where they look like it's really clicking, but I think they are getting better. I do figured out they do think they figured out what their strengths are in the running game and quarterback run, and he's really dangerous. But that said, I think I've underrated Loyola all year. I think
Yeah.
they are really good. I don't think they've taken too big of a step back. It's just gaining those young guys gaining experience, which they're doing. They are super well coached, especially defensively. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be maybe a little closer game than the average fan might think, but I do think Loyola comes out with the win. Is that the
Yes,
side you're on?
it is the side I'm on
All
too.
right.
But it's really interesting to me when I looked at this game. I thought, for the last several years, we've all been talking about Loyola and their offense, right? And not that their offense is not good this year, because it is, and I feel like you just said, it's growing throughout the season. They're getting better. They're getting more confident. They're young. They're 4-1, right? But I do feel like this year is a little bit different, and they are led by their defense. They're really stingy, right? They do not give up a lot of points, and I think that's going to be tough for Saint Ignatius, and knowing what Saint Ignatius likes to do or wants to try and do is try and grind the ball out on offense and move the ball down the field and maybe take up 10, 12, 15 plays, and score a touchdown, right, and keep the other team off the field. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Loyola. I really don't. So I'm picking Loyola as well in this game.
Joe, real quick, you talked about them being underrated defensively, them being Loyola, and they
Yeah.
haven't given up much in the way of points.
No.
It's been pretty impressive, yeah.
Very
So
impressive.
probably, like I said, I've underrated them, and it's probably across the board for their entire team. So,
Yeah.
yeah, they're still really darn good.
Yeah, they are very good. All right, so Marist and St. Ignatius. And this is the first time I'm going to use a new acronym, Dan.
Okay,
And this is for Marist. So Marist is 1-5. They lost to Providence last week. So they are squarely in the HFWGI. Do you want to know what that is?
let me have it.
It is Hope for Wins Gets In. Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hate to say that, and I did not think I would ever say that regarding Marist this year, but I really feel like when I look at their team and their roster a bit, they're young too, and I feel like they're kind of rebuilding. Last year they were senior heavy, right,
oh yeah,
and had a really great season last year, and they lost all of their stars essentially, except for maybe a few. And, they're really in rebuilding mode. So for me, this game against Ignatius, this was one of the hardest games for me to pick. I know Maris is physical, right? They're big up front. But I also know St. Ignatius has been getting better week in and week out. Now, they lost last week to Loyola. No shame in that, right?
right.
But I'm, you know, can I declare a toss up?
Nope.
No. So I am going to pick Marist in this game. I am. Even though I feel like St. Ignatius might be a play away from winning this game, or it might come right down to the end of the game, but I'm going to go with Marist in this game, Dan.
All right. Well, we're going to differ because I'm going to pick
All right.
St. Ignatius.
All right.
I think health plays a big factor in these
Mm-hmm.
games now. Who's healthy? I think Marist is a little beat up. Just some reported injuries that would hurt a team, and it's particularly Marist. So I don't know how if Saint Ignatius has any bad injuries or not, but I just think it's been on top of being a rebuilding year for Marist, it's been kind of hit by the injury bug as well.
Yeah.
So, while I think they are talented and I think they are physical, I think they're a little worn down. I think Saint Ignatius, theoretically, they can win out and get in. So, they're still their backs are get their BATW.
Yeah.
They aren't HFGWI yet.
All right.
Maybe
I
the
think you
whole
got that right.
one podcast we should just do all acronyms. So
HFWGI. HFWGI.
HFWGI.
All
Okay.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a little long, but
So,
yeah.
so in a weird like letter combo too.
It
It doesn't
is kind
roll
of
off the tongue.
does
But
not roll off the tongue at
BATW.
all. No.
But I'm gonna pick Saint Ignatius in what some people might think is an upset, but I think they've been working towards this. This could be a statement win for them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll see. So the first game there that we differ on.
Yeah.
All right. So the next game, I'm not sure if we'll differ on this one or not, Dan, is Montini and St. Viator. So Montini, I think we talked about, Dan, maybe one of our first or second episodes during the season this year, said who has the best chance to go undefeated. Obviously, Mount Carmel was one that we mentioned, but I don't know if we came up with another team or not, or a couple of teams. Do you remember that conversation or not?
I thought you were going to say because I thought we put Montini in the mix.
Maybe we did.
Yeah.
Maybe we did.
Yeah.
And here they are. They're 6-0, right? And they won a thriller last week against Carmel, 55-54. And even though they gave up 54 points, if anybody watches that game, and I would suggest any high school football fan go and watch that game because it is just an incredible highlight reel, the whole game, every minute of the game. It's really, really something. But, I feel like Montini's defense, if they're feeling a little down, right, because they gave up 54 points, I don't think they should. And the other thing is, I feel like they stepped up when they needed to step up. Right at the end of the game, they had some playmakers make some plays. So, I don't think it should, do anything to their confidence, right? So, I still think Montini is a good bet to, go undefeated in the regular season here. So, and St. Viator is, having a tough go right now. They're HFWGI for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, and their remaining games are against Montini. Then they've got IC. Then they've got St. Pat's. Right. So, rebuilding year for them. I think that's how they should look at it. And I don't think they have near the amount of talent at this point to hang with Montini on either side of the ball. So, I think Montini wins this game and wins this game big.
Yeah, at Montini, it's going to be a challenge. That's a true home field advantage. They are more talented than St. Viator. They're on a mission. They seem to be that team that finds a way to be on a mission every year. And regarding their defense, Joe, you remember the old Hawk Harrelson saying, "Don't tell me what you hit, tell me when you hit it." It's like their defense steps up. Montini's defense steps up when they need to. And I wouldn't feel bad about that at all. I think in high school, a complex passing game with a talented quarterback is the toughest thing to stop.
Yeah.
and talented wide receivers as well. I think it gets really really difficult. So I don't think they should feel down defensively, but I do think they have enough where St. Viator who's struggling. They don't have they are very likely not in the playoffs, with their fifth loss already. So, it's going to be a challenge for them. So, I'm picking Montini going away in this one.
Okay. All right. So the next game is Mount Carmel versus Joliet Catholic. And normally, we'd really be looking forward to this game. And not that I'm not looking forward to it, Dan, but I just feel like it's a different Joliet Catholic team this year than in some of the previous years. And we know what Mount Carmel is at this point, and they're 6-0. They beat a really good Brother Rice team last week. They've just got talent up and down the field on both sides of the ball. Joliet Catholic has been struggling a little bit. They're 2-4. They've got to win out, and they've got a tough road to get to the playoffs. And I'm not sure when's the last time we might have said that about Joliet Catholic, right? So, you can look at it as another kind of rebuilding year for another team, and that being Joliet Catholic. But, they've always got grit. They always play tough.
Right.
So you can't discount that in any games. And I don't think we've seen yet, or I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. Have you seen any teams have what you would consider a letdown game yet? I
I
I
don't,
really haven't.
doesn't really feel like that. That
Yeah,
where you can point to that one is like, whoa, that was a heck of a lot closer than it should be.
yeah,
Things like that. And so I haven't really seen it. Maybe this week with Montini and Carmel,
yeah,
such an emotional game. But yeah, so not sure we'll
yeah.
see that from Mount Carmel.
I'm not sure either. I mean, they're in the playoffs. They're 6-0. Maybe they're thinking about resting some guys or something like that. I mean, that's the only scenario I can possibly come up with that where Joliet Catholic could make this a close game, right? But I don't think that's going to happen either. I think Coach Lynch has Mount Carmel. They are a well-oiled machine, and they are really clicking on all cylinders. And I think Mount Carmel wins this one and wins this one big.
Yeah, the thing about Joliet Catholic is that you seem to get with Joliet Catholic, there is a pride to being a football player at Joliet
There
Catholic
is.
that
Yes.
doesn't let them kind of just let it go or give up. So I don't think you'll see that. I do think they're talented on both sides of the ball. They've got some standouts and that are established as well as some that are growing. So I think that they don't have the firepower because it's Mount Carmel. I
Right.
think they are truly getting CCL'd this
Mm-hmm.
year, but because Mount Carmel is so good and so talented, that they not that they can show up and win, but they can play average football. To Joliet Catholic needs to play perfect, to win
Right.
this game. So
Yeah.
it's hard to do, really hard to do. And even though it's at JCA, I'm sure they're going to be fired up. Like I said, they play with a lot of pride. I just think Mount Carmel has too much for them and most teams this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Okay. What about Naz and De La Salle, Dan? What do you think about this one?
Yeah, it'll probably be over pretty quickly. Is just kind
Mm-hmm.
of uber talented against finding your way type of type. That's what this game comes down to. So um I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people play for Naz
Yeah.
this week. A lot of people that there might be scores that we haven't heard from players we haven't heard much. They should be able to rest some of their folks, some of their players, for some of these games in later weeks. So it's going to be, unfortunately, a lot to a little.
Yeah, I think so too. One of the things, and I think we've talked about this now for 6 weeks, Dan, is that we like what De La Salle is doing. As far as they've got younger players, they're trying to bring them along, but they're really just overmatched at this point. And to have to play Nazareth, they're going to be really overmatched. They've only been able to muster 27 points, I think, over their first 6 games. And that's tough. And I agree. I think probably, after the first quarter or so, first quarter and a half, you've probably got Naz kind of resting some of their guys and letting some other guys get a little play time, and from the De La Salle side, you've got them getting more experience, right? Which is
Yeah,
what they need and what they're going to hopefully use going forward after this year. So,
yeah.
you know, yeah,
I was
go
going to say,
ahead.
I hope people are patient with Coach Blackman and the staff, because
Yeah,
I think he has the ability to build it, but obviously two teams on opposite ends of the spectrum right now.
opposite
So
ends.
so
You're
yeah,
right.
so
Yeah,
it's all Naz all day.
yeah, yeah. So I'm picking Naz as well. So we're the same there, and now we've got. I don't know how interesting of a game you think this is going to be, Dan. And when I looked at the schedule initially and saw this game on the schedule, I didn't really think anything of it. And this is St. Francis versus Marian Catholic. But then when what I saw Marian Catholic do last week at Marmion, um, finding something in their running back, Kyle Scott. He ran for over 240 yards, I think,
Wow.
in that game, and several touchdowns. And Marmion could not stop him. So this is going to be a really interesting game to me. Um, because I feel like Marion is going to try and grind the ball out on the ground with Kyle Scott. I think they're going to ride him, right? And we know what St. Francis is going to try and do. I mean, they've got a good running game, but they're going to try and score, and they're going to try and score a lot. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to air it out to their talented wide receivers. Um, so I think this game might be a little closer or tougher than people might think. When maybe you looked at this game on the schedule at the beginning of the year. All that said, I'm still picking St. Francis in this game, Dan, but I do think Marion uh, found a little something last week, and it might be a little closer than people think.
If you develop a good running game, it changes a lot of dynamics for everything else, because you can control the clock. So you keep St. Francis's high powered offense off the field,
Right.
and you wear them down a little bit. They don't have great numbers. They've got several two-way players. I don't know if it makes a difference either, but it'll be interesting to see if they stick with it. I think coming into the year, they probably thought, well, we're gonna throw it around with our 3-year starting quarterback. We had a little success doing that, and now Kyle Scott has emerged as someone that can really take over a ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can grind it out 3, 4, 5 yards at a time, that can frustrate a team, especially a team like St. Francis that is predicated on having the football and scoring quickly. So I'm going to pick St. Francis as well, but it becomes a much more interesting follow
It
than it
does.
was maybe even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the other game, the next game here that I had a really tough time picking, Dan, was St. Lawrence and St. Pat's. Um, St. Lawrence is 4-2 now. They lost last week to Fenwick, but I feel like St. Lawrence really needs this game, right? To get to that fifth win and secure their kind of playoff berth, because after this game against St. Pat's, they then have Brother Rice and Montini. Which is a tall order to hopefully get a win against those two teams. So, um, but St. Pat's 4-2 as well. They need a win, right, over the next 3 games to get a playoff berth. And when's the last time St. Pat's was able to say that, right? So, I think
Yeah,
they're
it's been
going
a
to
few
come out.
years.
Yeah, it's been a few years. I think they're going to come out and really be ready to play this game, and they're going to be looking at getting that fifth win and getting it now. Um, I was surprised, as you were, as how easily St. Pat's beat Bennett last week. I thought it was going to be a lot closer game, but what I saw with St. Pat's is, they put all facets of the game together against Bennett, and I think they're one of those teams that is growing throughout the season and getting
Yeah.
better and better, and they're getting confidence as well. So I know you've been riding St. Patrick all year, and I'm going to ride them with you in this game, Dan. I'm going to pick St. Pat's over St. Lawrence.
All right. Wow,
All right.
that's a good one. That surprises me a little bit.
All right.
That you jumped on the bandwagon. Yeah, that's good. There's plenty of room. There's plenty
There
of
is a
room.
lot
They'll
of
have.
room.
They're happy
Yeah.
to have us on there. So
Yeah. As long as
yeah,
I'm not
this.
next to you. Yeah.
Give us some space. Come on, we can chat while we're on
Shoulders,
there.
shoulders.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, St. Pat's is kind of fun to watch, and you are seeing them kind of grow up and find their identity as the season goes on. I think the same can be said. I'm not sure if St. Lawrence has the people in place at certain positions. Their passing game struggles a little bit. So
Yeah.
um, I do think while St. Pat's is a little more rounded, I think St. Lawrence has some swarminess to them, and defensively they get
Mm-hmm.
after it a little bit.
Okay.
I think they are both these teams feel like that they really need it. I'm going to give the edge to the home team, Joe. I'm going to go with St. Lawrence.
Okay. All right. Good. So we differ on 2 games so far, Dan. And we're up to our last game now of this week, and it's St. Rita and Leo. So St. Rita 2-4. They lost to Nazareth last week. Definitely BATW
Definitely.
for St. Rita. So they've got to win out. They've got Leo this week, and then they have St. Pat's, and then they have IC as the last game of the year. Leo, I don't know if this is surprising or not, but Leo 3-3 right now with Rita, Notre Dame, and Marmion left. So Leo, I think they're still thinking maybe they can get into the playoffs if they can put some things together over the course of these last 3 games. And I feel like their offense has gotten better every week. I think they've been legged kind of by their defense, and they probably will be over the course of the rest of the regular season. But if they can do a couple of really good things on offense or continue to grow on offense, I think they might be able to surprise some people, which would be great for Leo and great for the Chicago Catholic League, in my opinion. But I think St. Rita, like I said, they're in a tough spot. Their backs are against the wall. They need to win out. They know that, and they know they've got to get these next 3 wins in order to get into the playoffs. So, I'm going to pick and go with St. Rita in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with St. Rita too, Joe, just because I think the talent gap is pretty wide.
Mm-hmm.
Still. And while it's exciting, Joe, do you know if Leo with that third win betters their season from last year?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they won 2 games
last year. Yeah. So that it's a big deal. They've kind of, not that this is the goal. The goal should be to get in the playoffs, but I think they have shown that they've improved. They just haven't improved enough yet to beat a team like St. Rita right now. In 2 years when we're doing this podcast, maybe it's different. But where we're at currently, while St. Rita is down a little bit they're getting CCL'd for sure, and while their record isn't great, they're still a really good football team. You got a lot of good players over there. So
Yeah.
I think St. Rita still has too much for Leo, an up and coming Leo team this week. So I'm going to pick St. Rita.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So we've ran through all the games for this coming weekend, Dan, and that wraps up our Prognosticus episode for Week 7 in the Chicago Catholic League. We've got some powerhouse battles, a lot of playoff implications, and maybe a few surprises waiting for us, after this weekend. As always, the games will be decided on the field, but it sure is fun to try and forecast the storylines before the kickoffs. Make sure to follow along with us here on the Varsity Voices for score updates, recaps, highlights, and of course, the announcement of our Zuko's Dog of the Week. And don't forget to hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. Thanks for listening. And until next time, this is the Varsity Voices reminding you Friday nights are for the Chicago Catholic League.